everyone, and we are here again for a new episode of the Figure Out English podcast for English learners. Please go to our YouTube channel to watch the videos of the episodes with the full transcript and subscribe to the podcast updates. And let's go! Hello guys, and welcome to a new episode of the Figure Out English podcast. Don't forget that you can also listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify, and basically on every app which you are using for your favorite podcasts. Today I will be answering a question: is English a difficult language to learn? I receive a lot of questions like that, and people keep complaining how uncomfortable they are with language learning. And yes, I will try to figure out how it works, and everything I will be telling you will be about the adult learners. I would be very happy to help you if you want to teach your children English, but I am a professional teacher who specializes in adult education. That's why if you are over 18 years old, and if you, for example, have tried learning English at school, at university, yourself with a tutor, absolutely different situations, what would you expect how difficult English is for learning? Well, first of all, of course, the first point is the levels of mastery. I will not be talking about these theoretical levels. Yeah, it's a little bit too boring to talk about elementary level, advanced level, proficient level, or something like that. If you want to understand how a language works, you need to think about three basic levels of proficiency, yes, in a foreign language. First of all, what we call survival English. It is what you need for traveling, to different countries, because in most countries in the world, people speak English these days. The second level of proficiency will be using language for functioning. By functioning, I mean either living in an English-speaking country. This is the level of not just survival, but you will need to do different things, to go to the doctor, to go to the post office, and so on and so on. So this is a little bit more confident level of knowing English, and you could be using English for your work. This is the middle group, yes, this is the middle level when you are already a confident speaker, but we can't call you a professional, so to say. And the third level of language proficiency, it is so-called academic level, academic English, if you like. And here we talk about advanced and proficient users who know how the language functions from the inside. I mean, you understand already the theory, you are a bit of a linguist if we talk about this language, and you can teach it. I mean, you understand it so well that you can feel it and you can teach it. That's why if we talk about different levels of your mastery, there are some difficulties and there are some problems, there are some cool things about learning languages at every level. And the first thing you need to understand for yourself, it is what you want to achieve, because it's generally not difficult to achieve the survival level of any language, to tell the truth. Yeah, if we talk about English comparing to other languages, probably English is a little bit more difficult at the survival level. It's a bit difficult to learn how to pronounce and read the words correctly. This is probably the biggest problem about learning, and I would say yes. I think the reason for discouragement of many people, it is how difficult for them to get to this primary level. But the higher you move on in this hierarchy of the language levels, it will be easier and easier for you to speak English comparing to other languages. Let's talk about the process of learning in general. And again, it's very important that you understand I'm talking about English as a foreign language for you, because you learned your native language in a different way. It was so natural. You were immersed, right? And you spent so much time in the language environment, if I'm talking about your native language, you didn't feel it as learning. That's why many people think that it is very easy to master your native language, and that's why we need to find a cool method for learning foreign languages the same way we learn our native one. Well, I am afraid these methods are impossible to invent because there are a lot of factors. First of all, yes, the immersion, the amount of hours you are listening to your parents, you are listening to other people, you are trying, making mistakes, experimenting. And of course, it has something to do with your young age, when your brain is flexible, when you are still forming everything about the world inside your head. That's why a lot of processes are happening at the same time. That's why, again, it feels so easy. But it is not easy, believe me. And these psychological processes, they don't work for an adult brain. In this case, you could ask me, maybe it is impossible to learn and master a foreign language when you are an adult. Maybe it is too late. Maybe I was supposed to learn a language when I was a kid. Well, no, it's still possible. There are numerous examples, and me, myself, I know that if you want to learn to communicate in the language or even become fluent in a new language when you're already an adult, it's still possible. Just you use other methods for that. Yeah, I mean, you learn more logically, you try to remember a lot of information, you analyze more. Really, what is your main strong point comparing to children? It is that you are able to analyze the language which you are listening. For example, English, when you read and listen, you start to understand what's going on, and you're trying to use it in your own language. If we talk about the hierarchy of foreign languages, well, English is placed in the very bottom. I mean, it is usually included into the group of the easiest languages to learn. Well, there is this infographics. I'm giving you a link in the description. Maybe you have seen it, maybe not. Well, I really don't know how they counted that, but more or less, as a linguist, I agree with these statistics. First of all, the languages which require about 500, 600 class hours. So we are talking about 3 full level classes. We are talking about a couple of years if you just have 2 classes a week, for example, the standard procedure. Well, these are the easy languages to learn. So here English is similar to Spanish, to all the Romance languages basically. Yeah, it's similar to Swedish, to the easiest Germanic languages, and so on and so on. The higher levels, this will be Slavic languages, which will require more than 1,000 class hours from you to be able to start to communicate confidently. So we are talking about 3 or 4 years. And for example, Polish and Russian are included into this group. And yes, I confirm by my example, if we compare the grammar structures and if we compare the amount of vocabulary you need to learn to be able to express yourself freely, well, they are really uncomparable. So in English, you will be able to communicate effectively knowing less vocabulary. And it's okay. It doesn't say that this language is poorer than Russian, for example. No, it is not true. It's just, operating on different principles. Yes, if you plan to learn Germanic languages, in most cases, if you plan to learn Hungarian, for example, which is absolutely different group, yes, or if you want to learn Slavic languages, you will spend twice as much. I mean, twice more time to master them, to become confident in speaking them. And yes, there is this top level, the languages from Asia, Asia, yes, if we talk about Chinese, if we're talking about Japanese, well, first of all, of course, they are most difficult for us because I believe this infographics was created by the European speaker, right? Well, first of all, it's a new alphabet completely, and it's not this difference between the Cyrillic and Latin alphabet, yeah? It's a completely different alphabet and a completely different language system because they don't have grammar in our understanding, yeah? I mean, they concentrate more on pronunciation, on phonetics, on intonation, and this, of course, could be confusing, right? When you need to operate in a completely different signal system. So basically, this is the thing. How do we start feeling that it is difficult for us to learn a foreign language, to learn English, whatever language you want to learn? The problem is you use your native language intuitively. It is in your subconsciousness. I mean, you don't control these processes because through so many years of exposure, right, of listening and reading to your native language and practicing, experimenting again. Well, have you ever seen a kid speaking? I mean, they say stupid things, they say strange things. This is the process of learning happening. And that's why when you are already an adult, you don't realize that you have done any kind of job. And when your subconsciousness tries to deal with something absolutely new, with a different signal system, of course you will feel this frustration and barrier because you need to add new subconscious tools to your tool set, so to say. And in this case, I can tell you that learning any foreign language is actually difficult because of this one point. When you need to relax, when you need to understand that it is a different system and you need to get used to using it. At this point, you will be struggling with any language, even if linguists will find one day the easiest language on earth. It will still be a point when you are trying, okay, to switch from understanding, from the logical process, to intuitively using it. That's why if it feels hard for you to learn English, well, it is not English to blame, to tell the truth. It is really how it works with any foreign language. And this frustration usually happens in this middle level. I mean, when you are just a beginner and when you start learning language, you can see the result, right? I mean, today you knew nothing and tomorrow you know 100 words. I mean, wow, this is such a progress you have made, right? You feel good about it. But in the middle level, when you already know enough, but you still can't feel the language, you can't make it intuitively using, in this point, yes, you will feel the frustration. You need to be ready for that. You need to know about that, and you shouldn't think about language learning as a difficult thing. Because when you start thinking about it as a difficult thing, you block yourself and you can't progress anymore. I mean, you are stopping yourself in the process. If you understand, well, it's a part of the game, you can't escape it, but it is a very important thing to do. In this case, you will deal with it. You will find the help from the community, from your friends, from your teachers, doesn't matter. And in this case, you will overcome this barrier and you will become fluent. You will start feeling English. I hope I have persuaded you that, well, English is not difficult. And yes, language learning is a long process, but it's really worth it. It's so beneficial. It is the best feeling in the world when you understand that you can express anything you want to say in a foreign language. For this particular case, in English. And this is what I wish you to achieve. And Thank you very much for listening. So please let me know if these tips help. Comment here on YouTube, on our blog. Don't forget that you can find all the episodes of our podcast on figureoutenglish.com. And of course, share this episode with your friends if you like it. Thank you and see you. Thanks for listening. You can find all the episodes on figureoutenglish.com. Happy learning!